Welcome to another deep dive. This time we're tackling Iain McGilchrist's The Matter with Things.
Dense read.
No kidding. But it's all about how our brain hemispheres shape our reality, right? So not just the whole left brain versus right brain thing we hear all the time.
Exactly. McGilchrist goes way beyond that. He argues that each hemisphere has a fundamentally different way of experiencing the world.
Whoa. Okay. Two different realities in our own heads.
Imagine like a spotlight versus a floodlight. A simplified way to think about the focused left hemisphere and the broader, more contextual right hemisphere.
Okay, I'm picturing it, Mr. Spotlight and Mrs. Floodlight throwing very different parties up there. But like, why should we even care which light switch is flipped?
Because it affects everything.
Everything.
Yeah, how we learn, how we make decisions, the way we connect with other people, even how we appreciate art. Everything.
You're telling me my questionable taste in music is all because of my hemispheres?
Well, it could be a factor. Have you ever wondered, say, why some people gravitate towards logic puzzles while others are drawn to abstract paintings?
Oh, 100%. Logic puzzles, all day. So is that the left hemisphere at work then? All about logic and lists, right?
Definitely the analytical one. The left hemisphere is the language whiz. Loves to break things down into categories.
Okay, that tracks. Makes sense why I love a good spreadsheet. But wait, does that mean if I spend all day organizing that spreadsheet, I'm missing the bigger picture?
Well, that can happen. McGilchrist calls it missing the forest for the trees. That laser focus can backfire.
Like that time I spent an hour trying to figure out why my cookies were flat, only to realize I forgot the baking powder. Talk about missing the forest.
Exactly. And McGilchrist talks about studies where people with predominantly left hemisphere activity will accept a logically flawed argument simply because the conclusion sounds true to them.
Wait, seriously? Based on, like, stuff they already believe?
Yeah, their brain prioritizes what feels familiar over actual facts.
So my internal BS detector is snoozing? That's kind of scary.
It can be. And that tendency, to favor the known, it can have big implications. McGilchrist argues it contributes to things like reductionism, especially in fields like, say, science and medicine. Hold on, are you saying science is bad? Because we're pro-science here?
No, not at all. Science is incredibly important. But if we only focus on breaking things down into their smallest parts, we might miss crucial information about how those parts interact as a system.
Okay, I get it. So, you can't understand a car engine by just looking at individual nuts and bolts, right?
Exactly. You need both that zoomed-in view and the wide-angle lens.
Okay, so while my left hemisphere is categorizing my sock drawer, what's the right hemisphere up to? What's this whole floodlight brain all about?
Now that's where things get really interesting.
Come on, don't leave me hanging. What's so fascinating about the right side?
It's all about connections, you know? The right hemisphere sees the whole, the patterns, those links the left brain might miss.
So while my left brain is alphabetizing my spice rack, my right hemisphere is figuring out how to make an award-winning curry. Exactly. It's about understanding those things that can't be neatly categorized, the stuff that doesn't fit in a box.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. I can follow a recipe, no problem. But those times I've tried to just like wing it in the kitchen, disaster. Maybe my right hemisphere staged a coup. But it's more than just cooking, right? What other superpowers are we talking about here?
Think intuition, empathy, those aha moments when a solution seems to just appear out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's your right hemisphere doing its thing.
Okay, yeah. It's like that flash of insight you get in the shower, not when you're at your desk trying to force it.
Exactly. And crucially, it's the hemisphere that's most connected to the present moment, the feeling of being embodied, of experiencing the world through your senses.
So while my left brain's planning tomorrow's to-do list, my right brain's actually noticing how the sunlight's hitting those fall leaves outside.
You got it.
No wonder I feel so behind sometimes. But honestly, that's a pretty beautiful way to look at it, isn't it? This whole right brain experience.
McGilchrist argues it's that richness of experience, that feeling of truly being alive and connected to the world around you. And he uses these fascinating examples.
Oh, like what?
Well, you know how we were talking about the left hemisphere seeing time as these separate snapshots?
Yeah.
McGilchrist points out that if the right hemisphere is damaged, it can actually disrupt a person's experience of time's flow.
Seriously. Time feels different to them.
It can. They might feel stuck in a single moment, or like time is, speeding up or slowing down in these really strange ways.
Wow. It's like their internal clock is totally out of whack.
Exactly.
You know, it makes you realize how much we take for granted. Just like experiencing time as this natural flow is.
Well, it's pretty amazing.
It is. And it highlights how crucial the right hemisphere is, even for something as fundamental as our experience of time.
Okay, so we've got time, those aha moments, that creative spark.
It's our
No,
hemisphere territory too, right?
absolutely. It's vital for that. In fact, McGilchrist discusses cases of artists who, after having a right hemisphere stroke, they experience a major decline in their creativities, like their well of inspiration has just dried up.
That's wild.
Mm.
And a little terrifying, honestly. It makes you realize that this very human potential for creativity, for connecting with something bigger than ourselves, it's tied to the specific part of our brains.
Right.
So it's not like we're just born as logical or creative people. It's more about how these two sides of our brains are working together.
That's exactly it. We need both. And in a world that often seems to prioritize that left hemisphere stuff, the logic, the analysis, it's easy for those right hemisphere qualities to get, overshadowed.
It's like we're all running around with these mental spotlights trying to illuminate every single detail, but
Yeah.
we forget to flip on the floodlights that help us see the beauty of the whole picture.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's why I think McGilchrist's work is so important, so relevant,
Yeah.
because he's really reminding us of the value of both ways of knowing, of being in the world.
Okay, so how do we find that balance then? Should we all be signing up for like improv classes and poetry slams to boost our right brains?
It's not about picking one side over the other, really. It's more about becoming aware of how our hemispheres are interacting, making conscious choices to engage both sides.
Okay, I'm all for a more holistic brain workout, but before we get too carried away trying to achieve like inner brain harmony, I have to ask, what about how this all plays out in our relationships? The right hemisphere must be involved in how we connect with other people, right? So we've been like really spotlighting this whole left brain versus right brain thing, but it's more about how they work together, right? Like how do they team up when it comes to something as big as, I don't know, understanding truth?
Now there's a big one. And McGilchrist, he doesn't shy away from the big questions. He really challenges this idea that truth is just this objective thing out there, just waiting for us to find it, like it's a lost sock under the bed.
Okay, so no one true answer to life, the universe, and everything. My inner Douglas Adams fan is slightly devastated.
Well, not quite. McGilchrist's point is that truth is more of a process, you see. It's this kind of dance between our minds and the world. And both of our dance partners, the left and right hemispheres, they bring something unique to that dance floor.
All right, I like this metaphor. So how do they move to the music of truth? Does one take the lead?
Well, the left hemisphere, with its love of logic, it wants to pin truth down, define it, maybe trap it in a nicely labeled box.
So very systematic.
Exactly. But McGilchrist argues that this approach, while important, it can sometimes miss the bigger picture. It's like that old saying, you can't see the forest for the trees.
Or you can't see the forest because you're too busy trying to categorize every single tree.
Exactly.
Okay, so where does the right hemisphere come in? Does it sweep the left brain off its feet and into a more intuitive waltz?
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
Because the right hemisphere, remember, it's all about connections, right? It sees those patterns, the context, the things that don't fit so neatly into those boxes the left brain likes.
So, let me guess. While my left brain is busy fact-checking Wikipedia, my right brain is actually out there having a conversation, picking up on all those unspoken cues and stuff. Maybe that's why I get so frustrated when someone just can't take a hint.
Exactly. It's not just about what's being said, but the feeling behind it, the context, that bigger picture. And McGilchrist argues that this ability, to see beyond the literal, it's crucial for understanding truth as a lived experience, not just as a collection of facts.
So it's like, I can tell you the dictionary definition of happiness, but actually experiencing joy, feeling that connection to something larger than myself, that's a different kind of truth, isn't it?
Exactly. And those moments of true understanding, of really connecting with something deeper than ourselves, they often come from that right hemisphere place, that place of intuition, empathy, this openness to new ideas.
That makes a lot of sense. So how do we cultivate that more holistic understanding then? Do we need to meditate, write poetry, wander through art galleries? Give me the actionable steps.
It's less about adding things to your to-do list and more about approaching the world with a sense of curiosity, I think, and open-mindedness, really paying attention to your intuition, those gut feelings that so often get dismissed as, illogical.
Because our left brains shut them down.
Exactly. Be willing to sit with uncertainty. Embrace the unknown a little bit.
It's like we're learning to listen to both sides of the conversation that's happening in our own minds, tuning into the logical arguments, but also those whispers of intuition, the gut feelings, the moments of awe and wonder that, logic can't always explain.
That's it, exactly. And when we can do that, when we can truly listen to both hemispheres, that's when we open ourselves up to a much richer, more nuanced understanding of, well, of everything, the world and ourselves.
This deep dive has been incredible. It's not every day you get to explore the inner workings of your own mind like this. If you're as fascinated by Iain McGilchrist ideas as I am, definitely check out The Matter with Things. Trust me, your brain will thank you. And who knows, maybe you'll even discover a new truth or two along the way.